On the docket for today's Philadelphia Eagles now, we're taking all of your questions as the Birds are 2-0. But first, all of these questions coming in from our loyal subscribers who tune into our live shows. We go live a couple of times per week, so that's why you subscribe to the program. And if you're looking for Eagles content that's informative, insightful, and entertaining, with free daily shows coming your way year-round, lock us in, hit that sub button. Let's get to 53,000 subscribers. And with that, we start taking your questions right now. All right, welcome in. I'm Chase Senior, host of Philadelphia Eagles Now. No matter where you are or how you're tuned in, thank you so much for making today's show a part of your day. And thank you to True Classic for making today's show possible. I'm wearing one of their polos here. We have a great deal we want to tell you about from True Classic that we'll tell you about coming up here in just a few moments. But right now, let's chop it up with the Bird Gang and let's take all of your questions. David Marcella getting us started with the $10 super chat. I'm glad you said, Britain Covey, they should use Rashad Penny as the punt returner. I can't stand Covey. So what David is referring to here, during our winners and losers segment from that Vikings game, I listed Britain Covey as a loser. We know that he doesn't really add an explosive element to this Eagles special teams unit in the return game. And on Thursday night, he's been elevated from the practice squad each of the first two games. Philadelphia can only activate him from the P squad one more time before having to sign him to the official 53-man roster. And if he doesn't improve, could he be on the outside looking in? Can't fumble the football like that. Now, luckily, it was Kelee Ringo who pounced on that football, I believe, and the Eagles did recover it, but still, it's a fine line. And you can't turn the rock over like that, because if you lose that fumble, that can change the course of a football game. As for Rashad Penny, he's going to be a running back, doesn't have punt return experience. Maybe Greg Ward, Olamide Zaccheaus, they could step into that role. 5-7-0 with this one. I'm a little bit worried about Jalen Hurts. I certainly see why some people are worried about Jalen Hurts, and we can go to that Shield Kapadia quote graphic of what he said on his podcast for The Ringer, because when you evaluate Hurts through two games, he's looked a little bit indecisive. He's looked a little bit unsure. He's not registering the game as quickly and processing the game as quickly as he did last year. And he's just not pulling the trigger. And he doesn't seem to have that confidence running or throwing that he had last year. And everything right now seems hard. And analytically, he's not off to a good start. Shield Kapadia with some really good numbers here. There have been 600 quarterback performances going back to the start of last year. Hurts' performance against the Vikings ranked 593 out of 600 in success rate. And the first 2 weeks of the season, his success rate has been lower than in any game all of last year. So the eye test tells you that Hurts struggling a little bit, and the numbers also back that up, that he hasn't found his footing just yet. So I'm not going to hit the panic button here, 5-7-0, about Jalen Hurts. Like, I think he's going to be okay, but also at the same time, if this continues, this is a trend that's a little bit worrisome considering how much money is at play on that Jalen Hurts contract. David Marcella with 10 right here. Nicholas Morrow had a great game. Josh Jobe needs to put in more work. Did Sidney Brown get time? I did not notice. I was pleasantly surprised by Nicholas Morrow, and I thought he was pretty active. Now, with the Chicago Bears back in 2022, yes, it was a bad defense, but he also played a lot. Had over 100 tackles, 11 tackles for loss, and last night, Thursday Night Football, I thought he had some really good range, and I thought that him and Zach Cunningham were really active. Like, to get elevated from the practice squad and to kind of play around the box, make 3 tackles, have a tackle for loss, was pretty good in coverage. He stood out to me. Josh Jobe and Mario Goodrich were 2 players who I thought struggled early just because they're young and inexperienced, and the game flow of an actual NFL game is somewhat difficult to grasp at the start. You're going up against a team with a lot of legitimate weapons. Once they started to settle in a little bit and saw some more playing time, I thought they played a little bit better. Sidney Brown got 4 snaps defensively for the Eagles. I love the player. Hopefully we get to see more of him moving forward, but Terrell Edmunds and Justin Evans did play solid against Minnesota. So up to this point, how would you grade how the Philadelphia Eagles have fared through these 2 games? A, B, C, D, or F. I want you to let me know down in the comment section right now what you think of the Eagles' performance thus far. Before we continue to move forward with more of your questions, today's Eagles Now is sponsored by True Classic. I'm wearing one of their polos here on the show. And for the Bird Gang, 25% off when you use the promo code CHAT at trueclassic.com/chat. This is the athletic material for one of their polos. It's very comfortable, and the wrinkles disappear as you kind of wear these shirts as well. And with True Classic as well, it's something that you can add to your wardrobe, and it's very affordable with high-quality products as well. So we're going to go ahead and put that link down in the comment section as well as in the description of this video. Always like to take a minute to talk about these polos that I'm wearing from True Classic, my go-to destination for polos, tees, shorts, jeans, and other closet essentials. I love how their shirts fit and feel, offering us guys premium products without the premium price tag. Believe me, once you try these shirts from True Classic, you'll never go back to regular basics. But seriously, whatever you choose, can't go wrong with True Classic. That's promo code ChatSports at trueclassic.com/chatsports. Once again, we're going to put that link in the comment section and in the description of this video. Again, it's trueclassic.com/chatsports with that promo code ChatSports for that deal to apply. More questions here on the slate. J Blue Gaming, how hyped are you for the Philly Bulldogs or the Georgia Eagles? That tweet from Jeremy Fowler, Chip, was awesome as well because he outlined what the Philly Bulldogs were able to do against the Vikings on Thursday night. And look, it's a funny strategy, right? Everybody was making fun of Howie Roseman for it. You take Jalen Carter at 9. You get Nolan Smith at 30. You get Kelee Ringo in that 4th round. You trade for DeAndre Swift on day 3 of the draft. And it's like, well, yeah, you're drafting and acquiring a lot of Georgia Bulldogs and Alabama players, but they've been the best teams in college football, and they're really good players. And look at the impact that they had against the Vikes. DeAndre Swift, 28 carries, 175 yards with a touchdown. Jordan Davis, 1 sack and 2 quarterback hits. Jalen Carter, 1 tackle for loss. Kelee Ringo had that 1 fumble recovery. So these Bulldogs, they're playing. They're doing some impressive things for Philly, and they're making Howie Roseman look like a very, very smart man. True Allure, how should the Eagles clean up their penalties? Yeah, they could get a little bit better with some of their penalties. I'm not sure that they've been off-penalized to the point where it's become a massive concern. But, of course, if penalties continue and you lack that discipline, that's not good. But I actually thought the Minnesota Vikings were the more undisciplined team on Thursday night. Eagles fan Kylie Caperton, do you think that we will get rid of Brian Johnson? Anybody out there who's saying fire Brian Johnson after 2 games, relax a little bit. We knew it was going to be a tall task for him to replace Shane Steichen. What Shane Steichen's done in his NFL career has been really impressive. What he did week 1 with Anthony Richardson, who threw 17 touchdowns and 9 picks last year at Florida and completed just over 50% of his passes, also impressive. Justin Herbert, with Steichen as his offensive coordinator with the Chargers, had a career record-setting rookie season. We saw the growth that happened with Jalen Hurts. We can't expect this Eagles offense to go from Steichen to Brian Johnson seamlessly, especially when he didn't have an opportunity to call plays for these starters in the preseason. Now, week 1, I hated the game plan. You didn't target Dallas Scudder. You barely gave DeAndre Swift any touches. I didn't like some of the play calls and the play designs. But in week 2, credit to Brian Johnson for making some adjustments. They went from trying to pass it early to running it. Then they ran for more than 250 yards, which then opened up the pass game and some of those explosive plays. So sometimes for a coordinator, got to give them credit for adjusting on the fly. Avonte, Josh Jobe, in my opinion, got cooked. How do you feel about him knowing he may be a starter if Maddox is out? So I think Mario Goodrich would be the one who would get those slot nickel snaps instead of Josh Jobe, because he's the one who, all throughout training camp, when Maddox was out with that toe injury, was the player who stepped in there. And you kind of look at what the Eagles have at their disposal right now. James Bradbury comes back out of concussion protocol. Hopefully he can play week 3 against the Bucs. He moves back outside. You have Darius Slay outside. And then in that slot, it can also be a combination of players. But also, could Joe be better on the inside? Does he maybe lack the talent and the speed to cover true outside wide receivers? Usually guys in the slot are a little bit slower, so maybe that aids him a little bit. Mario Goodrich has some ability. I thought that as the game progressed, Job and Goodrich were able to play better ball after they both had some rocky starts. Avonte with another one. It's the same one, actually. Josh Job got cooked. I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. The good news is, the trade deadline isn't going to be here for a little while. So, Philadelphia is going to be able to kind of assess and address this situation as we move forward in the coming weeks. Sean the Kid, any concerns about the play calling moving forward? With Sean Desai, I think he's done a pretty good job. Like for the Eagles defense, to play pretty well on Thursday night going up against a desperate team. They wanted to avoid going 0-2. They have some really good weapons with Justin Jefferson and TJ Hawkinson, Jordan Addison, KJ Osborne. You're without James Bradbury. Avonte Maddox got hurt in that second quarter. You don't have Covey Dean. You don't have your starting safety. Everybody's going to look at the points scored and the yards that Kirk Cousins threw for, because he threw for well over 300 yards and 3 or 4 touchdowns, right? But the style of the game dictated the Vikings' game plan and what they had to do offensively. They were down the entire game. That's why they had to pass so much. The Eagles went up 27-7, and that's why they stood back in some of that conservative defense. Eagles MVP this season has been who? You can drop me a name down below in the comment section. DeAndre Swift, certainly the MVP of game number 2, but through 2 games, Eagles MVP might be Swift, might be Jalen Carter, might be Darius Slay. Honestly, it could be Jake Elliott, because the man has been money. Another one here, I'm a Cowboys fan, so keep the bias in mind, but man, Jalen Hurts has not played well these past 2 games. Was his play style figured out, or did the OC make him change? He isn't looking good. Yeah, he hasn't looked great first 2 games. And I'm not going to panic about it too much, as I've continued to state. It's way too early for that. You see some of the ability. I mean, the long ball to Devontae Smith for that 63-yard touchdown, he had a defender right in his face. He took a big hit. Arm motion got stopped short, yet delivered that football on stride. He hit earlier Devontae Smith on another long ball. Week 1 against the Patriots, he had struggled. Pass should have been complete downfield to A.J. Brown. He's made some really good plays. Nothing has been there in the running game for him. The pick that he threw against Minnesota, blatantly threw into double coverage. I didn't like that. But keep in mind who the Eagles were going up against. Bill Belichick, arguably the greatest defensive head coach in the history of this game. He literally had all offseason to prepare for week 1. Studied this Eagles offense. Brian Flores is a Bill Belichick disciple, and his game plan was really solid. So let Hurts continue to cook, continue to instill confidence in him, but if these types of performances do continue where he looks hesitant, looks unsure of himself, struggling to really spread the football around, then yes, you start to become a little bit worried. Ernesto, how can the offensive line improve to help give Hurts some more time to find his receivers? I think that's been a part of Jalen Hurts' struggles up to this point. The offensive line has not been good in pass protection. But that's why I was saying going into week 2, I want to see more DeAndre Swift. You have to give DeAndre Swift some carries. That gets the Eagles' offensive line very confident when they're able to move downhill, allows them to settle in with some of that pass protection. With pass protection, they've not been good. But have they found their identity, and can the run game help the pass game a little bit? I hope so. Bird Gang Eagles, do you think the offense has improved from week 1? I would say that both performances did not inspire a ton of confidence. Now, the second game, I thought there were a lot of big takeaways from that. Swift pops off for 175 yards. He was unstoppable, looking like a legit RB1. You established that run. You were successful with Swift and the entire team that ran for 250-plus yards and 3 touchdowns. And then that opened up some of the shots that you can take downfield. They were a little bit better than they were in week 1 when they struggled to convert off opportunities. But look, the Vikings turned the ball over 4 times, and I think the Eagles only converted points on, one of those giveaways potentially? So they have to get better. And last year, they stomped on the opponent's throat so often, so early. They've got out to early leads and leads in general so far to start the season, but it just hasn't looked the same. I do think that the offensive coordinator, going back to that other question, is a big part of that. So we look ahead to week 3 now. Birds, Bucks, down in Tampa. Who do you like? PHI for the Eagles or TB for the Buccaneers? Get those all too early score predictions and game predictions in. And as always, thanks for watching the show here on Eagles Now.